War 127 was a slower-paced war compared to the chaos of War 126. After that 70-day grind, a lot of players and clans decided to take a step back, either taking a break entirely or focusing on smaller side projects this time around. Many of us expected that after such a long previous war, this one would wrap up faster, but we were proven wrong. War 127 ended up lasting 41 days and had over 4.8 million total casualties by the end. Let's break down how this war unfolded and how the slow march to victory played out. On the first day of the war, the Colonials came out swinging. They captured several key capital cities from regions including Lockmore, Deadlands, Marben Hollow, the Claustra, and Silken Shelf, putting them at 22 out of 32 victory points. Meanwhile, the Wardens managed to secure Westgate and King's Cage, giving them 17 out of 32 points at the start. One of the first major clashes broke out in the Claustra, specifically around the capital city of the Treasury. This is what one Colonial player had to say about that battle. "We expected the Wardens to be faster inside the Treasury. We caught them with their pants down and took that town in the first few minutes of the war. As always, early war is extremely enjoyable. The bridge battle was something else, not the classic slog of destroying the bridge and then fighting at the lips of the road, more about tactical sandbag walls, flanks, etc." End quote. This battle would set the tone for the northern front for this region. The fight for the Claustra would drag on for the next 30 days before any major territorial shifts occurred. By day 2, both factions began to settle into their positions and fortify their defenses. After the Colonials had captured the entire region of Silken Shelf on the first day, the Wardens responded with a massive counteroffensive and took back half the region. They launched wave after wave of Mammon rushes to make this victory happen. They would end up taking the capital city of Port of Rhyme, putting the score at 21 for the Colonials and 18 for the Wardens, but the Wardens would not hold on to it for long. The battle for Silken Shelf would rage on for the next 31 days, becoming the third deadliest region of the war with over 592,000 casualties. On day 3, the Wardens launched another major offensive, this time in the region of Lockmore, attacking from both the east and west. They managed to capture the capital city of Fairmore, changing the score again to 19 for the Wardens and 20 for the Colonials. Like Silken Shelf, Lockmore would become a brutal back and forth that would last over 35 days before any major territory changes occurred. It would go on to host one of the best city battles Foxhole has ever seen, and by the end it became the second deadliest region of the war with more than 604,000 casualties. By day 4, the Wardens had pushed hard into Westgate, taking full control of the region and forcing the Colonials south toward Origin. But Origin's northern front proved to be a nightmare to hold. One Warden player described the struggle like this: "Origin has been a back and forth slog for a while. There were massive gains along the coast just hours ago before losing it all, and being pushed back to the railway bridge. We have sent multiple Mammon charges at enemy emplacements, allowing for some small breakthroughs. However, progress is slow and partisans continue to harass and cut off our logistics. As long as the Colonials have that bridge, we can't make any progress further inland." End quote. Meanwhile, at the center of the map, the Wardens made a strong push into the Deadlands, capturing the capital city of Abandon Ward. This put the score at 20 for the Wardens and 19 for the Colonials, marking a major milestone. This would be the first time in 97 days that the Wardens have held a victory point lead, the last time being all the way back on day 5 of War 125. However, just like the other fronts, the Deadlands turned into a long bloody stalemate. Control over the region would shift repeatedly for the next 26 days, and by the end it became the deadliest region of the war with over 715,000 casualties. During day 5 of the war, the front lines barely moved. As mentioned before, many of these regions wouldn't see any major shifts for several weeks. You might notice that throughout the rest of this video, I'll be skipping over a few days. That's because during those times there were no significant battles or territorial changes worth highlighting. This is also a good time to remind Foxhole players that you can join my Discord and share your own war stories. Some of them might get featured in future war summary videos. The link to the Discord will be in the description below. By day 7, total casualties had already surpassed 1 million across both factions. There still weren't any major movements on the map, but one player shared how the lingering burnout from War 126 carried over into this one. "I have not been spending a lot of time during this war actually on the game, since I got burnt out during War 126. However, today I spent time doing logi and running flatbeds." End quote. Even with players feeling tired from the previous war, many continued to contribute in smaller ways, running supplies, transporting materials, or building defenses. That's one of the things I really appreciate about Foxhole. No matter how small your role or how little time you have, you can still make a meaningful impact. During day 8, the Colonials launched massive assaults across multiple regions. On the western front, they managed to break the blockade in northern southern origin, and pushed back into Westgate, reclaiming about half the region. This is what one colonial player had to say about the battle in Westgate. "I'll give kudos to the stubborn Warden defenders yesterday at Longstone, and today at Kingstone. It took concentrated effort of combined arms, and more artillery and mortars than I can count to keep them bogged down enough to finally dislodge them." End quote. Meanwhile, on the eastern side of the map, the colonials made major gains in Lockmore, retaking most of the region along with the capital city of Fairmore. This counter-offensive put the colonials back in the lead with 21 victory points to the Wardens' 18. On day 11, the Wardens held strong defensive positions against heavy colonial assaults in Foxcatcher, located in the weathered expanse, and at the port of Rhyme and Silcan Shelf. The defense of Foxcatcher was especially critical, as it housed one of the main Warden refineries. This structure was essential for producing the basic materials needed to craft weapons, ammo, and vehicles. Losing it would be a major blow to the Warden war effort. A Warden logistics player who took part in the defense described the experience like this: "Earlier today, the 18th Regiment spent our time going between scrap fields with the train. We scooped everything over and over, brought the train to Foxcatcher, and put the scrap into public BMAT queues, constantly giving the Wardens a steady supply of BMATs. Never did we stop our scrap operation. Even during the colonial fire rocket attacks, we stood firm." End quote. Meanwhile, at the port of Rhyme, the Wardens defended the city walls for almost 24 hours, but by day 12, the colonials managed to break through, retaking both the port of Rhyme and the entire region of Silcan Shelf, bringing the score to 22 for the colonials and 17 for the Wardens. On day 13, the first storm cannon of the war was completed. These massive artillery emplacements are powerful defensive structures that make it incredibly difficult for the opposing faction to advance. A Warden player who helped construct it shared their excitement. "Today, all of the hard work the 147th has been putting in has finally come to fruition. As of this evening, we have successfully constructed the first storm cannon of the war. May the colonials feel the wrath of the wraiths." End quote. By day 14, there wasn't much change on the mainland, but out at sea, the Wardens launched a large-scale naval invasion in the region of Tempest Island. They successfully secured the entire region, pushing the colonial south toward the island chain known as the Fingers. With both Fisherman's Row and Tempest Island counting as victory point regions this war, the new score stood at 21 for the colonials and 18 for the Wardens. One Warden player described the naval invasion as follows: "We've launched an all-out assault and invasion deep into Tempest Island. We quickly captured Surge Island and then the Gale, after we had a fake-out landing at the reef to draw away the collies. We had also destroyed their seaport in the Iris, despite the coastal guns' protection. This plan had been in the making for a while, with constant surveying of the island, disrupting logistics, shelling surrounding islands, hitting deep in the Fingers. It all led up to this." End quote. On day 15, the Warden naval campaign continued with a series of new invasions in the western island region of Stemma Landing. By the end of the day, the Wardens had secured full control of the region. Their naval crews then sailed east to support the main front in Westgate, where their artillery support helped push the colonials out of the region once again. The Wardens would then reclaim the northern part of Origin, though the fighting there would continue for another 24 days before any major territorial changes occurred. That same day, the Wardens launched another offensive in Silcan Shelf, successfully retaking the capital city of Port of Rhyme and reclaiming about half of the region. With new capital cities secured in both Westgate and Silcan Shelf, the Wardens regained the lead with 20 victory points to the colonials' 19. By the end of this bloody day, total casualties had surpassed 2 million. On day 17, the Wardens made long-awaited progress in King's Cage, pushing the colonials south toward Sableport. The southern part of King's Cage had seen constant back-and-forth fighting for more than 2 weeks, but the Wardens were able to finally break through. The next day, on day 18, the Wardens reclaimed the city of Abandoned Ward in the Deadlands once more. They would hold the city for 16 days before any significant changes took place. A Warden player described the moment of victory like this: "Today we secured the plaza, and with help from a ton of rockets from Cheese, we managed to tap and take the ward. Overall, feels great to take it back." End quote. On day 19, the Wardens pushed back into Lockmore and began what would become the long siege of the capital city, Fairmore. This siege would drag on for 19 days before any major shifts occurred. On this day, a player made a prediction about how the rest of the war would play out. "I'm predicting the Wardens got this. Their foothold over the bulwark will give them the edge they need to roll up the colonial lines. We haven't seen any good ops to take back Westgate since the early days, and the colonial QRF has been lackluster at times." End quote. By day 20, after weeks of grinding warfare, the Wardens finally pushed toward and captured the capital city of Maiden's Vale in Marben Hollow. This solidified their momentum and extended their lead to 23 victory points, leaving the colonials with 16. On day 23, the Wardens continued their steady advance into Sableport and captured the colonial refinery town of Cinderwick. This key midline logistics logistics hub was a major loss for the Colonials, as it disrupted their regional supply lines and production efforts. A Warden player who took part in this operation described it this way: "The Wardens later in the day had a major vet op going on in Sableport that I joined. We dehusked so much concrete, including a storm cannon. That was a big morale booster for us. Basically the whole time was going in massive blobs and dehusking concrete bunker bases. It was a ton of fun." End quote. On day 24, an unusual event broke out behind Warden lines: a civil war. Reports indicated that one regiment had discovered an abandoned facility that was starting to decay, likely belonging to another group that had stopped playing for the war. They salvaged some valuable resources from it, assuming the owners weren't coming back. However, the original regiment later returned and demanded their materials be given back. By that point, the resources had already been used for another project, and tensions escalated into a large team-killing conflict between the two groups. For the next few days, the regiments clashed in the backlines before things eventually calmed down. Incidents like this are extremely rare in Foxhole, and usually happen because of miscommunication or misunderstandings. For anyone new to the game or considering joining, it's worth noting that this kind of situation probably will never happen to you. On another note, towards the end of this day, the casualties for both sides surpassed 3 million. Skipping ahead to day 30, after 9 days without any major changes in territory or victory points exchanged, the Wardens launched a major offensive into the Claustra and captured the capital city of the Treasury, bringing the score to 23 for the Wardens and 16 for the Colonials. That same day, the Wardens continued pushing through the Deadlands, driving the Colonials south towards Umbral Wildwood. On day 32, the first nuke site of the war was constructed by the Wardens in the Deadlands, just south of Callahan's Gate. The missile was aimed at the Baths and the Drowned Vale. Also on this day, a new Colonial player shared their thoughts about the ongoing war. "I find this war very interesting, especially since it's the first one I've been following all fronts on. There's always a big push going on somewhere and always a place in dire need of defenders. The way this constant push and pull affects morale is very interesting to me. Single individuals may get very upset in World Chat about losing a town we just got, only to be reassured immediately that we'll get it back. Colonial World Chat still promotes the idea that we are winning, be it propaganda or not. I don't think this war is over. Not at all." End quote. During day 33 of the war, no major territories changed hands, but total casualties surpassed 4 million. On day 34, the Wardens began pushing into Umbral Wildwoods, marking the region's first significant battle. That same day, the Colonials constructed the second nuke site of the war in the Fingers, targeting the capital city of the Iris in the region of Tempest Island. By day 35, after a grueling 19-day siege, the Wardens finally captured Fairmore, but the Colonials refused to let it go easily. Over the next 3 days, they launched massive counterattacks from the south in an effort to retake the city. Also on day 35, the Wardens broke through into Allod's Bight after 35 days of fighting in the Claustra. They captured the midline refinery town of Scurvyshire, which would turn into another major logistical setback for the Colonials. On day 36, the Wardens made sweeping territorial gains in the east, capturing most of the Drowned Vale and Allod's Bight. Following the Warden nuke strike that obliterated the capital city of the Baths, their forces swept through and secured most of the surrounding territories. In Allod's Bight, the Wardens continued their advance, taking the capital city of Mercy's Whale. With the destruction of the Baths, this pushed the total victory points to 31, with the Wardens holding 25 and the Colonials 13. This is what one Colonial player had to say about the battle in Allod's Bight. "Me and some of my other regiment members spent many long nights building up scurvy, just to have them topple over because nobody came to defend it. After that, there was not much left. Nobody had really spent time to fortify the rest of Allod's, so it fell in no time." End quote. On day 37, the Colonials built the third nuke site of the war in the southern part of Origin, aiming it at the refinery town of Cinderwick and Sableport. That same day, the second Colonial nuke launched from the Fingers, striking the Iris on Tempest Island, marking only the second time in Foxhole history that an island region had been hit by a nuke. With that, the total victory points needed to win the war was set at 30. On day 38, the Wardens finally pushed the last of the resilient Colonial forces out of Lockmore and into the Heartlands. Lockmore was home to a special Warden task force this war that deserves recognition. The group, known as E-Squad, consisted of players from various regiments and random individuals who banded together to form and organize an effective fighting force. They were a major factor in the Warden's success in the region. E-Squad built a stronghold near the Relic Base in Westmarch and called it E-Fort, which became a key position that helped them hold Lockmore and keep pressure on the Colonials in Fairmore. 2 Warden players shared their experience with E-Squad. I want to give my thoughts on Lockmore. You have to talk about the efforts of E-Squad and Swifty 5. E-Squad does much of the logi, fighting concrete, and building up the hex. Without them, it is likely Westmarch would have fallen. End quote. And this is what the other player had to say. E-Fort has been one heck of a fun time with Swifty 5 and E-Squad. Totally organic and public support has caused the fort to survive the shelling of not 1, not 2, but 3 storm cannons in the hex. End quote. During that same day, the Wardens launched massive offensives across the map, marking one of their most successful territorial pushes of the entire war. In the west, after a long back and forth fight, the Wardens finally captured the entire region of Sableport. Moving further east in Umbral Wildwoods, the Wardens took full control of the region just within 4 days of entering, and were already advancing into Great March to the south. In the next regions over, the Wardens had captured all of the Drowned Vale to the north, and managed to capture most of Shackled Chasm within a day. Further east, the Wardens attacked Endless Shore from the Colostra and captured the capital city of Saltbrook. By advancing from the west, they were able to bypass a massive colonial defensive base in Brackish Point to the north. By the end of the day, the score was 28-9 in favor of the Wardens, leaving them with just 2 victory points away from winning the war. But the Colonials weren't done yet. They built the 4th nuke site of the war in Origin, right next to the 3rd, preparing for a counterstrike. On day 39, the Wardens continued their steady advance, securing all of Allod's Bight and pushing deeper into the Heartlands and Great March. The biggest battle, however, unfolded in Origin. After fighting for control of the northern bridge for most of the war, the Wardens finally broke through and swept across the region. Their goal was clear: capture the capital city and destroy the colonial nuke sites before they could launch. While all of this was going on, the Colonials constructed a 5th nuke site in Origin, bringing the total to 3 active sites in the southern part of the region. Despite this, by day's end, the Wardens had captured the region and destroyed all 3 nuke sites before they could launch. This is what one Warden player had to say about the fight in Origin. Did a lot of post-nuke capture fighting in Origin. It was very obvious that despite the Colonials as a whole seeming like they gave up, there were still some collies who wanted to stand and fight, and make us pay for every inch. GG's to the ones who stayed and fought. You did so valiantly. End quote. After this battle, the score stood at 29-8, with the Wardens just 1 victory point away from winning the war. All eyes turned to the Heartlands, Great March, and Ashfields, the Wardens' next targets to win the war. Going into day 40, the Wardens launched relentless assaults on these final regions, sending waves of infantry and tanks, but the Colonials held firm. In Great March, one Warden player described the brutal fight. Great March has been a total slog. We managed to push very well until the capital city of Satari, where we were constantly met with massive forces of tanks. No matter how many we kill, more would come. I suppose sooner or later they'll run out of armor and we'll be able to capture the city. End quote. On this day, the Wardens also attempted naval invasions on the capital cities of Terminus and Reavers Pass, but both landings failed that day. By day 41, the final day of the war, the Colonials were still holding out. All eyes were still on Ashfields, the Heartlands, and Great March. Their defense at the final victory point lasted more than 36 hours, which proved to be an impressive last stand. Throughout the day, the Wardens also started to surround the capital cities of Acrithia and Terminus, inching closer and closer to victory. In the final moments of the war, the Wardens captured the capital city of Blemish in Great March, and just 8 seconds later, another Warden naval landing seized the capital of Reavers Pass, Keelhaul. To secure the win, the Wardens needed to hold one of these cities for 15 minutes and upgrade their town halls to Tier 1 garrison. In the end, it was Keelhaul that upgraded first, officially ending the war. One Warden player shared their experience of the final naval landing in Keelhaul. We landed the long hook behind Keelhaul, which the collies were not expecting. We managed to kill most of the concrete behind the town hall, which was already exposed from an earlier battle. We killed a battle tank but failed to kill the town hall. We actually got below 30 shirts in the long hook, but we finished with over 2,000 because of awesome Logi players. Once the regiment's telephone and 3rd frigate arrived, we managed to take down the town hall. It was over. We managed to beat the Heartlands in the VP race, and were declared the winners, 31-30, end quote. And with that, War 127 came to an end. It was a slower, longer war than most expected, but both factions fought hard and made it a memorable campaign. If you would like to send me quotes or stories about your experiences during future wars, feel free to join my Discord. I'll leave a link in the description below. I've started uploading more to my Patreon and Ko-Fi accounts. If you would like to watch these videos, you can support me with only $1 to gain access, or you can become a subscriber as well. This really helps support the channel and helps me pay for animations, new equipment, and the programs that I use to edit. If you are unable to support the channel financially, no problem. Watching old videos or maybe videos you haven't seen before helps a lot as well. Thank you all so much for watching and for your support. Make sure to subscribe for more Foxhole content. I'll see you all in War 128. Cheers.